really glad to welcome everyone to our first banking masterclass. And this is really a session on automation and how you as a company can help gain that revenue advantage through automating these repetitive and time-consuming processes. Here at Conga, we really believe there's really 6 dimensions of our revenue advantage. So that's things like revenue predictability, understanding, when you're going to get revenue in the door, when you can expect the next amount of revenue from your prospects and or customers, and more. Also revenue velocity, the speed in which you can receive that money. If you're able to automate these different processes, can you cut these things that might take 10, 20, 30 minutes down to just a few seconds to create the right information, get to those customers and really shrink that time to velocity. The quality is the right information being sent to the right people at the right time? That revenue lifetime value. How can you create these repetitive processes that really improve and increase that lifetime value over time so you can expect more from your customers? Revenue efficiency, cutting down that time to revenue as we've discussed. And then finally, revenue innovation. It's how can you be really setting the bar and being in the forefront of how you are interacting with and engaging with your customers. And really different companies of different sizes really are placing different weight of what to prioritize first. Here at Conga, we call that the revenue advantage. A lot of times when we speak with different people who are trying to automate their processes, it's really starting to discuss what comes first. No matter what you sell, what you provide. Preston, you brought up earlier that sometimes a lot of big companies work with Conga. We also have a lot of small companies that work with Conga that really are trying this core thing of what can I tackle first? And how can I really automate and cut down on that process so I can have that revenue advantage over my competition? So, Doug, I guess a question for you is that, from your line of work, of these 6, different categories, what's something that you all focus on of something that you want to use automation to help solve or tackle?
I'll answer a little bit philosophically to start with and talk about just industries in general. I mean, to begin with, having the some insights from working across multiple industries. I mean, revenue is obviously a common that's a common theme among all businesses, because without revenue, we don't exist, and we're either nonprofits or we're just completely altruistic, or perhaps we're Twitter and just decide we're never going to make money. I'm sorry, X. But nevertheless, I would say that in my experience, the 2 keys, starting with predictability, because predictability at any stage of an organization allows you to do a few really important things. Number one, it allows you to have the foresight to talk about growth internally. So revenue predictability is tied directly to growth. So if we know that we're going to, for example, take on a new line of business or a new client, and that may be another $1 billion in revenue, that investment in securing that growth is equally as important. So in predictability and decision making, I think that's a truism across, again, multiple industries. I think specifically to agriculture, I think for us, lifetime value is really important. We are, as Preston will probably touch on as well, we are an industry that is a lifelong industry. I mean, when you grow up in farming, you live your life in farming, and you exit in farming. And unlike other industries and other career paths, where you may go from banking to a fintech to a financial services organization, we may take a little bit more of a crooked path. For farming, it's always fairly a straight path. And I think that lifetime value has a lot to do in the conversations that we have. Personally, my own kind of cross to bear in this conversation is really innovation. I mean, I think that most companies, again, across industries, I think most companies tend to overlook the importance of innovation, and not only as it comes to, in the context of revenue and how do we gain new innovative ways to find revenue strategies and develop revenue strategies. I think that innovation in general is a term that is well served at the boardroom, and it's well served in the executive leadership table, but it's often ignored and overlooked. So I would say out of and obviously all 6 dimensions are key to success, but to me, that's how I break apart my decision making.
Interesting. And well, how about you, Preston? Any that you focus on, or kind of what's your mindset when tackling these processes?
Yeah, I'll leave Doug to be the philosopher of the day. I mean, as we look at it, we have some advantages and some disadvantages for being a smaller company. I mean, one, we're able to just roundtable everything and kind of tackle what we want, rather than having committee after committee and kind of corporate red tape. However, Doug's right. Kind of where we land amongst industries is a little unique. A lot of the times we end up working with grandma and grandpa that pass it down to mom and dad, and then we are working with the families as they transition from mom and dad down to the kids. And so we have kind of a unique role to play where we can, be out at the kitchen table with a bunch of these families and have 3 generations all that have dealings with us at Pellegrini Financial. So brings unique opportunities, unique challenges. But I mean, for us, we are not focused as much on the, breakneck pace of outward growth. We are looking at it more from servicing existing clientele, servicing existing relationships, and fostering the multi-generational relationships. And so with that comes, we look inward to our own processes and how do we create more efficiency? How do we innovate? And how do we bring our clients, at the end of the day, they're at the heart of everything. How do we bring our clients a better end result so that they are able to have those, family conversations to be easier or more complete? And at the end of the day, when, their journey is done, that their estate is able to get actioned more efficiently because we've organized their financial world in such a way that their wishes are properly outlined and summed together. So that's where we usually, turning towards Conga for, some of the twisting, the Congolese of revenue predictability or velocity or quality, what have you. I mean, we look more at it as legitimately predictability, that we have our outputs for our clients day in, day out to be the same. We can predict what it's going to be, high quality. And amongst all things, for us, advisor time is the number one resource. And so how do we unlock that so that we are able to service existing clients and those next generations and of course a little outward growth. And so how do we create that efficiency within our organization, our practice? And so that's probably our, call it the top 3 or 4 that we mainly focus on and why, how it ties in.
Yeah, I think the 2 things I really took away, you had mentioned something of time, which kind of ties into the efficiency pillar, is that's really what everyone's trying to solve, especially, in the banking world or kind of the financial services world that both of you are in. It's that people want the right information at that right time. And how can we make sure that we are getting them what they need as soon as they need it and provide that really level of comfort and that level of service? Because kind of in this world, your customers or clients are, you treat them like family. And, even in your instance, Preston, a lot of these people are families that there's a lot of empathy and care put in. And the last thing you want to do is really slow down that process or make them not feel valued. So really interesting insights. Something we always talk about when speaking to these businesses looking to make that transition of, obviously they choose a pillar or they choose, a certain zone they want to focus on. We talk a lot about really getting out of that revenue friction zone, because typically when they're coming to automate something, coming to fix something, it's because something is stuck. At a very high level, we talk about, they're used to doing the status quo, but things are slowed down because maybe their tech isn't connected. Maybe their data is in separate places. Maybe these contracts they're sending or information they're getting to and from their customers might be risk averse in somehow. And overall, it's providing this really poor buying experience that when they're interacting with you, like I've said, you want that right information at the right time. You want to make sure that these customers are feeling, or clients are feeling valued, like those family members, and more, to really provide that better service. Because, in this industry, that's something that really stands out is service and quality. So I guess, Doug, question for you is that of these items in this revenue friction zone, what for you is really the costliest issue, or what are kind of the challenges that you've had to try to solve to really save your company the most money and increase that lifetime value, or really value of any sort of client?
So, kind of a double answer here, because I think, to begin with, costliest is if you draw it down to a balance sheet, you're gonna first look at isolated technology, because isolated technology decisions typically imply that it was made in a closed door meeting, and that the decision wasn't clarified to the rest of the organization. And all of that comes down to a fairly simple problem, and that's really communication. But what's interesting in this graphic and the friction zone is you really can almost think of it as a domino, and that's how I view this. Is it's a long line of dominoes, and if you make an isolated technology decision, then the next thing that comes up is fragmented data, because you're not thinking about the holistic overall operation. You're focusing on outcomes and simple wins. What I think I spent probably most of my time kind of trying to unboil the bowl of spaghetti that we are dealt with daily in the technology side is really siloed problem solving. I mean, there's we talk on the technology side, and we've used this term for years, of shadow IT, and shadow IT is probably fairly out of fashion right now, but it's still a realistic problem. And shadow IT is you take something as powerful as a set of tools like Conga can supply, and you put those in the wrong hands. What happens is, with best intentions, people begin to make decisions and solve problems, but they're lacking the correct inputs and the right information, the right oversight, and they don't necessarily focus on the strategy. They focus on the daily. So it's really important as a technology leader for me to make sure that really it's always the 3 C's. It's communication, clarity, and control. And I say this to anybody who will listen. I say it loudly and I say it often. And it's how I've managed most of my executive career. With proper communication, the organization gains clarity of what the expected outcome is, and then you can control that outcome. And if you line up those 3 things, your revenue friction begins to decrease dramatically. And when we talk about the poor buyer experience specifically, I mean, the worst outcome of bad decision making internally is external impact. And when we, a poor decision, and especially in today's world where buyers are becoming more and more fickle, they have less and less tolerance. And this is true whether it's agriculture or any other industry. But in our world, and Preston will echo this most certainly. I mean, it's interesting with Preston being on the Canadian side and I'm on the US side, we deal with the exact same set of problems. I mean, it's, once farming and agriculture is such a trust-based relationship. If you lose that trust with that individual or that group of individuals who are making those buying decisions, it is, I rarely use this word because it's an absolute, it is impossible to ever regain that trust. You have lost all credibility. And that's not, in a lot of other industries, you can return customers back to the fold with for example, interest rate incentives or something like that, something simple in the financial world. But in the world of farming, agriculture, it is our coin to the realm is truly our relationship. And I think this is I really appreciate this simplicity, this viewpoint that you laid out on the screen, because it really shows that going from friction to champion is as simple as paying attention to these keys, these dimensionalities. So I think it's something we could talk about we could probably teach an entire course just on this one this one area. But I think it's very important that people keep their eyes on the ball with this type of activity.
Absolutely. Preston, what are some of the roadblocks you experience? Are they the same as Doug's, or anything to elaborate on?
Yeah, they're a little different. I mean, I love how Doug puts it, that isolated tech kind of just leads to that fragmented data. Mm-hmm. That is probably our single biggest roadblock in our industry. We are more on the independent side. We didn't want to go to one of the big banks because we want to basically say, hey, whatever and wherever what we feel the best solution for our clients is, that's where we want to go. And we don't want to have any of the, additional roadblocks there. However, that leads its own pain points where we have kind of an independent dealer that has their own technology that we, do or do not have a say in. However, then for solving issues for our clients, that leads to us making some decisions to go out and get our own software packages or sign up for, all the plethora of the monthly subscription model tech that's out there. And fintech is particularly, wrought with that right now. Like, it is everywhere. Things are popping up. They're trying to solve issues. They're solving one issue very well. And, as Doug says, within a big corporation, that it can, get a little trying to untangle the boiled pasta there. That's how I feel just the larger, financial industry is with tech, is they're all trying to solve their own, niche. And you start taking a look and you'd have to subscribe to like 10 of them to get like the perfect solution. And so you pick and choose what you can and what you can, justify and what would get your clients the best output, but you can't win it all. And every single one of those has their own interface that has their own data. And so for us, particularly, it's the isolated technology and all the packages that come from all the different areas, and then grabbing that and trying to make something useful of it means that you're accessing, no exaggeration, it could be a dozen different systems just to pull all the relevant data together to try to have somewhat of a usable package at the end state. So yeah, I would echo a lot of what Doug said, from our industry perspective. Again, the farming families, they live and die by who they trust, and if you've done them well or if you've done them disservice, that is basically their bread and butter of how they make decisions and choices. So that's what we wrestle with on the daily, trying to, again, bring our clients to the forefront. Just it causes opportunities because, again, we're smaller, and so we don't have the issues that Doug does to try to roll things out and have quite the 3C issues. We're able to just pull up around one desk with the three of us or four of us that need to go and make those decisions. However, it causes issues elsewhere, just as we're trying to sort through the ocean that's out there with all the fintech that has popped up in the last couple of years.
Yeah, those are such great stories to share, because you obviously can provide much better perspective of how you're dealing with your clients and more. But in the end, yes, we're identifying the revenue friction zone, and you're doing it for a reason. Not only because I think trust is such an important factor in this industry, is to build that trust and earn the trust of your prospects and clients, but also there's really a quantitative result of, those people who do make that transition into automating these processes and to making sure that things can be, automatically generated, created, sent to a customer more. You are seeing that increased win rate. You are seeing sales revenue increase. You're seeing the faster order to cash cycle and more. You see these percentages here on the screen. There's a massive difference of those people who make that transition. As we talked about, maybe you're choosing one pain point, you're choosing one thing in this revenue friction zone that's going to be a priority to fix. You're starting with these baby steps, but then by automating these processes, you're getting rid of a lot of that manual error and, as we discussed earlier, time in order to change things. Now, you all shared kind of, the additional or some of these initial pain points, but a lot of our customers say, how do I know if I'm stuck in the revenue friction zone? I think you guys shared great stories to help describe that, but I want to hear about some of the results. I want to hear about, we're calling you our revenue champions. That's why we're having you on this call. Doug, can you share a bit about really the use case you were trying to automate and some of the quantitative results you saw out of this transition into automation?
Absolutely, and I can get fairly succinct on this one. So for us, one of my first responsibilities when I joined the company almost 4 years ago was to transition from a legacy technology system. And the legacy technology system was literally 20 plus years old. It was full of a lot of human intelligence in the sense that there were a lot of processes that were built into it to help automate. And by automate I mean electronically automate processes that were originally paper-based. So as I moved from the old system to the new system, one of the areas I focused on was document generation. For us, document generation, because we originate a fairly significant number of loans annually, because that's in the agriculture world, that's what we're doing. It's an input finance loan, so you're auto renewing that every year, or sometimes you're going through a reapplication phase depending on the changes that inside your own company. But for us, the addition of Conga into our tool set allowed us to do a couple of things. Number one, it allowed us to streamline communications using Composer with our customers, because there are a lot of checkpoints that go along the origination process. Typically you're not dealing with a single individual. A lot of times in the agricultural world, you're dealing with, potentially it's, multiple family members who own a large cooperative farm together, and they may have different geolocations and other things like that. So there's a lot of checkpoints, right? So there's a lot of buy-in to get to control that. For us, and just to put a very fine point on this, when I joined the organization, we were at about $540 million portfolio. As of December, this past December, we are at 3.2 billion. We are moving up fairly quickly. We expect to probably cross 4 billion by the end of this year, and potentially 6 in the next couple of years. And that is a direct correlation to taking a fairly complex process and making it as simple as possible, and making it as automated as possible. Because at the end of the day, this is not a captive audience. People have choices. They can go to different places for input financing, and they continue to come to us. And the feedback we get from our marketplace is that it's the easiest of all the solutions to use. It's the most trustworthy, and that's a really interesting term to use when we talk about technology and our relationship with our customers. But for me, one of the things I talk to often to several other companies and vendors and partners, as well as our internal teams, I really like to talk about how we digitize the relationship at the gate. And outside of agriculture, that sounds like a very odd thing to say, but inside agriculture, what that means is we are built on a handshake. We are literally built on, and I grew up in a farm community. I witnessed this firsthand as a child. Your cooperative representative would come to your gate of your farm, literally drive a truck up to the gate of your farm, and you'd stand there and talk. I'd watch everybody talk about things I didn't understand when I was, I wasn't even as tall as the fence was at that time. But that's to me the ultimate goal of our entire technology approach and our automation approach is how do we broker that trust, that relationship? How do we digitize that relationship and make sure that our customers for Cooperative Finance Association feel like they're being taken care of, and in that the automation helps so much in really decomplexifying all of that. And that's an odd term to use, but it really is. It takes, removing that complexity and getting into instant approvals and evergreen notes and generation of documentation and all those things. The other thing is generationally, we've shifted a lot. The days of, where Preston lives on, estate management and estate transfer, we're on the other side of that. We're dealing with generations that are now expecting, it better be on my phone. It better be as easy as push a button to sign. It better follow these other fintech offerings that are out in the marketplace, or otherwise, again, it's a choice. They can choose to move somewhere else. And to me, the preservation of that relationship is the underlying tenet of that preservation is full automation of the process.
And I'm looking at these bullets here at the bottom in results, and you talked about how people expect things right away, and that your previous process was taking 1 to 2 full days to generate these reports, and now they're generated and sent, essentially instantaneously. And that is, I think you nailed it in the sense that people expect information now, and by automating these processes, you now meet the expectations of what people need right now. So really great story. Preston, can you share a bit about your use case and really how you got to this point where automation was needed?
Yeah, and you know what, Doug? I love that you said removing complexity, because we legitimately, our slogan is simplify the complex. Like that is our number one job almost when we are dealing with our clients, is to remove the complexity. Probably, somewhat differently between the two and between the clientele, but regardless of where you are, how are you able to sift through the absolute enormous universe of options and concepts and terminology even. And how do you get that in layman's terms and get it in front of the client in a way that they can digest quickly? So I love that just came out of your mouth. For us, again, we're a little different. Like Doug said, we're not dealing, as much with the next generation that is wanting everything on their phones instantly and continuously. For the most part, we're dealing with that, the middle generation that had the farm passed down from call it grandma and grandpa, and they are now the folks with the farm passing it down, or recently passed it down and now have the money and aren't working the farm. And so they aren't as tech forward. They still like everything on paper. They still like us to come to their fence posts. We sit at their kitchen tables. And frankly, for the vast majority of our meetings, it's more of a visit and a catch up. And then we, get key updates of what's going on in their world. And then we relate that back to how we're able to help them in more of the financial planning universe. But from the Conga perspective, it is an output to the client while creating efficiency within our office. And so what we use it for is generally, again, we have fragmented data. It is everywhere. And so we still have a lot of hard work to make sure that we have our CRM up to date and updated with all of the information that is pertinent to the household. But then how the heck do we get it out and into the client's hands so that they are able to reference it when they need to? Again, a lot of these estate conversations are when our booklets are getting brought out in front of these families and they're pointing to our document that outlines their entire financial world. We have their base information, we have their financial accounts, their lifestyle expenses, any of their assets, so their house, their farmland, any cabins, the trailer that they bought for $250,000 that they're traveling the world in, estate documents, insurance, absolutely everything about them is in one place. That helps the conversation so much, just so that they're able to, I had a question about that. I thought that was going to go to, our son, not our daughter. But, in this document, we're able to just flip back and forth within pages just quickly and see that it's actually pointed the other way. Okay, well, maybe we need an estate discussion that triggers, impetus to sit down and actually have some conversations. And so using Conga, we're able to actually leverage our CRM, whereas before it was the most expensive Rolodex that we could buy. And so being able to, at a click of a button, instantly generate these documents to either send out to clients if they want them at a moment's notice, or during our review period, go through it. We're able to review it all with them, update it with any internal or external, assets or moving pieces that they may have. And then they get it at the end of the result or end of the meeting, they get it as kind of a deliverable of, okay, here's your updated world. You basically file that with your estate documents and you have peace of mind for another year, another 2 years, however frequently that they want to go and revisit all of those documents. And so that's how we're using Conga. I know Canada has a little bit more regulatory heavy where we can't just create our own documents. We have to use very regimented documents for all of the, account openings or what have you. But being able to use Conga how we currently use it, plus a couple of our dream state that we're currently working on, we can service our clientele in a fraction of the time of just the support staff hours that goes into scouring and entering and filling and generating these documents.
Absolutely. And I think, between the two of you, you're also laying a very good landscape of just different use cases. It's not always you start with this document or this process. In the, banking or financial world, there's so many different documents. Preston, you mentioned the regulations, you could be fined for incorrect data or the time it takes to get information to people. You could lose customer trust. There's so many things that you have to, be so sensitive about and create that relationship and the assurance and security to your customers across the board, whether it's CFA, Pellegrini, or Aligns as an example, saving lots of time, saving money in the process, and getting the right information to the right people at the right time. Really, it sums up, we like to think of it as, three things that really, these three features of document automation. What are the three things that are going to improve ROI? Well, one, the cost reduction. McKinsey has said that, by reducing documentation costs, by automating these processes, you're reducing costs by 90%. Looking at faster turnaround times, that you can actually reduce that document cycle time by up to 80%. And then you can enhance that customer experience, which honestly, in my opinion, seems to be the most important thing to take away, is that how can you provide that better customer experience where not only do you attract the right customers, but you retain those customers and you get referrals, you can upsell, cross-sell, new opportunities based on the good business you're already doing. So, arguably these don't exist without the other. Preston, with all this free time you have now, what are you doing now that you're automating all these steps and saving time in the process? Are you able to expand your business? Are you picking up new hobbies? What's happening?
Yeah. No, just you know what? Maybe investing a little more time into the hobbies that I currently have. No new hobbies coming down the pipeline. No, and while we're on this slide, we have the enhanced customer experience there. I know we've kind of touched on it, but in such an age of choice and options and everything, largely being online, digital, and at a click of a button, very impersonal for the client to be able to swap without having, in yesteryear that they had to book a meeting and come in and say, hey, my financial planner that I've used for so long, you haven't done X, and so I'm going to leave. Now they can basically just go and fill something out online and you get paperwork a week later saying, hey, they want to transfer out, so chop. Being able to do this stuff well is A, for great client retention, but B, if you're doing it well, people find out. Word of mouth is huge, and you're just going to start attracting business naturally over time by doing these things. But in terms of time savings, I mean, we have at Pellegrini Financial kind of been in a state of metamorphosis for a few years now. We've been buying some advisor books who were retiring, bringing those relationships on, introducing ourselves, what we do, and get a whole swath of new clients in and accustomed to our process and what we do differently and how much more information that we're asking from our clients so that we can give them a better end product. And so that has been incredibly time consuming. And then obviously going and working with the folks at Conga to enhance a few of our use cases that we currently use Composer for. We've gone from 3 support staff, and again, these numbers take it with a grain of salt because we are talking small company versus a lot of larger companies. So you can do the math in your head and take percentage wise, but we had 3 support staff and we let one go. We are down to 2 support staff, and even there we have capacity for future growth. And so that is where I think that we realized a lot of our gain from the Composer being implemented within our business. And so again, that brings the advisor out, because with previous process we had, it was riddled with errors and the advisors kind of had to get in the mix a whole bunch. And so that is just valuable hours that get taken away from more valuable things. Okay, like servicing clients is far and away the most important thing we do. And if we have to take hours out of our day to go and explain different things or touch up templates or understand why a process is breaking over and over again, those are valuable hours that we have since been given back. And so we are able to focus now more on, okay, we've got the internal processes down, our clients are getting serviced well, and we've still got a little bit of time. So let's kick up some marketing and go out and start focusing on a little more outward growth. And so that is where, from a company of 7 people, that we're able to unlock over one whole headcount and still have room to kind of go and focus on external growth. That is where we have kind of seen most of the benefit from our side.
Yeah, and I think a good takeaway here is that whether you are this big bank looking to drive efficiency or really a small firm looking to scale, or even in your instance, become more efficient, your challenges deserve to be addressed. And Preston, you gave the example of this underdog small firm who found a way to really champion your firm and scale in a big way, not only for Pellegrini Financial, but for your customers as well, who depend on you in this very personal way. Doug, you're your company's growth champion, helping CFA drive profitable growth at a significant rate and really scaling this business year over year very, very significantly. So it's really interesting to hear both of your stories. What I would love to transition to for our listeners is that while I'm getting the demo set up, feel free to kind of put in the chat of what are some of the use cases you're hoping to solve? What are the things that you hope to really make better throughout your company? And I want to show you really a very short demo of what is possible when you're automating these document processes. So let me quickly share my screen. Okay. Perfect. So what we have here is a Salesforce instance, and we really want to show you that when you're using Conga Composer, Conga Sign, and automating the creation of your documents, the execution of your signatures, that you can get everything done either with a click of a button or automatically. Here in Salesforce, maybe our account is Rachel Adams, and we are a financial company who's working with her. What you can see here is that here on the right, we have document generation buttons. So we have the ability to embed these buttons for you. You can also do this yourself, where you can automatically generate the appropriate documents for your customers with one click. So you see client summary, generate invoice, or quarterly client review. Maybe in this instance, we're clicking client summary. As soon as by clicking it, you're seeing that it's now pulling information from the Salesforce account, putting it directly in the template that we've created for you. And now here at the bottom, you see a file of that client summary for Rachel Adams. We can easily click on it, and what you'll see here, excuse me one second, you can click on it here, and what you'll see is, there we go, is you see that full invoice, and you'll see the branding from Blue Cube at the top. You see Rachel's name. You see all the relevant information in this client summary, all the right information, all the data pulled from that record, whether it be Salesforce or another CRM or ERP you're using, directly in this beautifully branded document. And then what you can see as you continue on is that maybe there's other documents you need to create. Maybe you're creating this generating invoice right here. I can click on it. Same thing with one button. I'm now taking all this relevant data and pulling it into an invoice template that can then be sent out for signature. So what you see here is that maybe this information now in Conga Sign, I want to send the client summary to Rachel Adams. I also want to send the invoice to her with all the right information. You can see that her information has also automatically been populated. So once again, I've clicked one invoice button, one client summary button, and now I'm already ready to send for signature. I can easily I can click a new recipient if I want to send it to other people as well, or I can just send it now. And that now invoice, that client summary has been sent to Rachel. You now see in this example that really we're going to switch roles here and switch over to Rachel's point of view. From Rachel's point of view, she's now got an email from Blue Cube where she can click, she can see this full invoice where she clicks in and sees, once again, beautifully branded information. All the information from Blue Cube has been populated in this document that fits your branding. You can click down and see that we even have a signature tag in place that Rachel can sign, agreeing to this invoice. She can put in her information and click sign and click complete signing up here. And all of a sudden, that signature has been now signed by Rachel and sent back to Blue Cube. Blue Cube now can look here. You can see down here the invoice exists, the client summary exists. You can see the Conga Sign transaction and more, where once again, that you can click down and see Rachel's signature here in the invoice, that now exists. You now have really sent out a compliant document to your customers. So a quick example of, in this instance, it was client summaries and more, but really it could be anything. And that's really what Conga Composer does, is it works with whatever you're working in, whatever documents need to be created from whatever data source you possibly need. It can take all that information and put it in a beautifully branded document and automatically send it to the customers you need. So whether you are in Salesforce, whether you are in Dynamics, whether you are in your homegrown system, that's something that really automating these processes can do for you. So let's wrap things up. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen again. What we always like to say is that really for your maturity, where do you sit? A lot of times you have to think, where am I in my processes? We typically have 5 stages of our maturity here, where it's ad hoc, or all your processes manual, or you having to manually create these reports, these summaries, these documents. Do you have some initial automation in place? Do you have a lot of streamline automation in place that might create more self-service experiences for your clients or customers? Is it something that you have multiple use cases now being automated? Are you in the intelligent stage where you're using analytics to automatically better optimize your documents, populate them with the right information? Maybe certain prices or certain information might lead to better conversion rates and more. And then finally, that stage of optimization. Our goal is to always get you to that stage of optimization, but typically you're in those first 3 stages. And we can always sit down with you and say, what are those friction points in your revenue friction zone? What are you hoping to solve to gain that revenue advantage and more? Any closing statements, Doug or Preston, before we close things out?
I would just, I guess I'll start off. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for the attention today, and I would highly encourage, if you're not already using Conga, to explore not just the Conga Sign, but the entirety of the Conga suite. It's a very impressive stack of technology, and I spent quite a long time before we made the choice to adopt Conga, and it was a very, very good decision for us. We're very happy with the outcome.
Yeah, and you know what? I would echo that once again. I just keep waiting for Doug to speak so I can echo that. I mean, for us, that's kind of our dream end state that you showed up there, Brad. Getting a new client to come in, able to just punch in information and fire out an integrated e-signature, document to their email. That would be absolute dream state for us. That we're slowly working there. Again, there's pros and cons to being a smaller office. That is one of the cons is that we're not technical, and so it's on the side of everyone's desks. But that is what you showed there. What we are slowly but surely marching towards.
Absolutely, no, and yeah, it takes baby steps, and kind of what we always tell everyone is that what's your biggest pain point, or what's the one step you can take and automate to really take that massive step to realize better ROI. Yeah, I want to thank you both for your time. Your information is extremely, and your knowledge and your stories is extremely appreciated. And we can't wait to share more with you in the future. So thank you, Doug. Thank you, Preston. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And we will talk to you all soon. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.